Okay, for our final student, we have Ashton Warlick. He's a first-year cardiovascular perfusion student at Rush. After graduating with a bachelor's degree in biology from Shippensburg University, he was an autotransfusionist at Barnes Jewish in St. Louis. And as a Sandoval Symposium intern, Ashton has enjoyed learning about our profession, or our networking and connecting with other perfusionists.
Hello, everyone. First, I want to say thank you to Richard for those encouraging words. And I also wanted to say I appreciate the Sandoval committee for inviting me to present and to be an intern. So I just want to say thank you for all that. It's been an amazing opportunity so far. And with that, I'm here to talk a bit today, not about a research project I've done, but about something that interests me, and that is ex vivo liver machine perfusion. Okay, let's get into it. I have no disclosures. First, I wanted to talk about some background information about liver transplants by the numbers. Unfortunately, because of the difference between the number of donors and the number of recipients, many people end up on the wait list. And according to the 2021 Organ Procurement and Transplantation Network, OPTN, they report that 13.1 per 100 patient years die while waiting on this wait list. And these graphs are directly from their data report that they give each year. So you can see it slightly increases the waitlist mortality, while the need for organs has remained about the same. Of all the livers recovered, about 10% were not transplanted, and this, of course, worsens the organ gap. Reasons for discarding these organs are numerous, but include how the patient died, such as donation after circulatory death, older donations, or fear of disease transmission, such as hepatitis. So what are some of the solutions to bridge this organ gap? How can donated livers reach more recipients? One of the ways is by extending the criteria for what constitutes a viable organ, especially for DCD livers. DCD livers are less desirable in general because they are more prone to ischemia, reperfusion injury resulting from the depleted energy substrates that are necessary for withstanding these longer ischemia times. Also, expanding the donor pool can be achieved by accepting livers from older patients. Also, in order to reduce the discard rate, we'll directly increase available livers that can be achieved, and this can be achieved through many avenues. This includes detecting early graft dysfunction by improving viability testing, which could give clinicians actionable information on detecting what is a suitable liver. Also, the discard rate may be reduced by actively improving the quality of the graft before transplantation rather than waiting and seeing after transplantation post-operatively. So what are the goals of liver machine perfusion? So how can machine perfusion be one of the solutions I covered earlier? Machine perfusion increases the use of ECD organs. These are extended criteria livers. Those that come from older patients, obese donors, sicker donors, or steatotic livers, or organs that have undergone longer ischemia times. Machine perfusion can also reduce risks of grafts developing early allograft dysfunction or biliary complications, which are a major concern of liver transplants post-op. Standard cold storage alone does not adequately store ECD livers. There's a couple studies that support that claim. I just wanted to go a little bit into the physiology behind ischemic reperfusion injury. So the standard path a liver will take during the whole process is first warm ischemia during harvest, cold ischemia once placed on ice, and then warm ischemia during, transport while cold, and then warm ischemia during implantation. Then this provides ample opportunities for complications along that path I just said, and injuries such as graft dysfunction, impaired liver regeneration, and again, biliary complications, especially with DCT livers. Here's just a simple diagram of the physiology of ischemic reperfusion injury. So during ischemia, there are hypoxic conditions which can lead to acidosis, decreased ATP production, and increased succinate and NADPH. And then once reperfusion is established, formation of reactive oxygen species, along with mitochondrial reactive oxygenation species are formed, which can lead to activation of downstream pathways, inflammation, and damage to essential biomolecules. This is a busy graph, but I like it because it shows more of the physiology in detail. So you can see that the reactive oxygen species lead to these downstream pathways that activate some cells and cause some damage downstream. And it also shows the increase in succinate and the NADH formation. But what you need to take away essentially from this pretty busy graph is that machine perfusion repairs complex 1 in the mitochondria and allows for ATP re-uploading. And it also allows for metabolism of the accumulated succinate and NADH. So to get a little bit more into the different strategies for machine perfusion, I wanted to first talk about cannulation. There are two main ones. There's dual cannulation, which involves the portal vein and the hepatic artery. The dual cannulation involves dual hypothermic oxygenated perfusion, also known as DHOPE, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later. And the second one involves just the portal vein alone, which receives 2/3 of the organ's blood flow. And this would involve hypothermic oxygenated perfusion, which I'll talk again a little bit later as well. Some of the oxygenation strategies, there is active oxygenation, and this includes all normothermic machine perfusion, where the organ is kept at normothermic temperatures, and involves the use of blood, usually RBCs. DHOPE and HOPE also use oxygenators. However, hypothermic machine perfusion does not require active oxygenation and can use perfusate without blood, without the addition of the packed red blood cells. Even though maintaining O2 tension with ambient air during hypothermic preservation has been shown to be possible, oxygenation has been shown to restore ATP levels. So there is a benefit for active oxygenation when you put in an oxygenator. Even though lastly, there are different transportation strategies I'm going to get into. The most common one used for most institutions is back to base, where the organ is placed on ice and is transported to the recipient hospital and then implanted. But studies have shown there's a higher rate of post-transplantation graft dysfunction, ischemic reperfusion injury, and ischemic cholangiopathy when compared with livers preserved with normothermic machine perfusion. So just to get a little bit more into the temperature strategies that I touched a little bit on earlier. First, normothermic machine perfusion. This mimics physiological conditions of the human body for up to several days, usually between 34 to 37 degrees Celsius. And the possible advantages of employing this is real-time viability testing and prolonged ex vivo time on the device. It does require heparinization due to the use of blood products, the packed red blood cells, but different perfusates have been used with normothermic machine perfusion. This includes Steen solution or gelucifene, which is currently not available in the US last time I checked, I believe. Studies have shown that it can be used to reduce graft dysfunction with the addition of certain molecules such as plasminogen activator with fresh frozen plasma. And this can facilitate clearance of fibrin and lactate, which can lead to cholangiopathy, and that's essentially biliary complications. Another temperature strategy is hypothermic machine perfusion, HOPE or DHOPE, depending on your cannulation. This is maintained at 4 to 8 degrees Celsius and is generally used for shorter periods to protect the mitochondria, which in turn reduces oxidative injury during implantation. Some studies have shown that DHOPE can be used for up to 24 hours. It can be associated with lower rates of cholangiopathy. It also removes accumulated lactate and fibrin and can provide adenosine for increased ATP production. Evidence from randomized controlled trials supports improved clinical outcomes for extended criteria donors. Gawara and associates have also conducted a study where they modified vasosol to provide L-arginine, N-acetylcysteine, nitroglycerin, and prostaglandin E1. Again, it does not require oxygenated perfusate, but some of the perfusate solutions used include custodial, Steen solution, gelucifene, and University of Wisconsin solution. I also wanted to talk about some of the devices on the market, so I'm just going to quickly run through 3 of them. Here's the OrganOx. It's a UK-based company, and it is FDA approved, and I just listed the indication. So essentially, it can be used for donors after brain death, DBD livers, DCD livers less than or equal to 40 years of age and with less than or equal to 20 minutes of functional warm ischemia time, defined as time from donor systolic blood pressure of less than 50. And it's a normothermic device. I don't believe it has any hypothermic capabilities, and it is also a closed circuit. Here is the Transmedic OCS. They have one for liver, the heart, as we know from previous talks, and also lungs. But the liver is also FDA approved, and the indication is for DBD livers and DCD livers of less than or equal to 55 years of age with less than or equal to 30 minutes of warm ischemic time. This device is also normothermic and is also a closed circuit. And studies on this device have shown it provides superior post-transplant outcomes with increased donor liver use. The last device I want to talk about is the ex vivo liver assist. This device is not currently FDA approved in the US, but it is in pre-market approval. Interestingly, the reason I wanted to, there are a couple more on the market in other countries, but this one's mostly used in Europe and throughout the world. But I want to talk about it because it has hypothermic and normothermic capabilities. So you can put the liver on one of the normothermic settings or hypothermic and then increase or decrease for the need of the liver. It is open circuit, which could make it more modifiable and a potential avenue for further research, and does include 2 centrifugal heads, a continuous portal vein flow, and a pulsatile hepatic artery flow, mimicking about 60 beats per minute. I also wanted to talk about where the science is going. So current research shows that dynamic perfusion, the addition of normothermia or hypothermia, and then changing it to better suit the liver, these sequential modalities may be synergistic and useful in viability testing and may provide a better outcome overall. There's also research looking into novel biomarkers for teasing out what makes a good liver versus a bad liver before transplantation. This would include microRNA used to detect hepatocyte damage, and also the FMN biomarkers and NADH biomarkers fluoresce. So that would be a tool used to detect hepatocyte damage before implantation. There's also the possibility to increase expansion into pediatrics. Often optimal donations to children still result in graft dysfunction due to increased cold ischemia time. However, split livers can be placed on machine perfusion, and this would open the door to giving children livers with less cold ischemia time. Like I said, dynamic perfusion, including normothermic regional perfusion with cold storage and ischemic HOPE or DHOPE or controlled oxygenated rewarming, in combination of all of these, could be used for increasing better use of ECD livers. Future research I wanted to talk on a little bit includes optimizing perfusate for livers. There's no perfusate solely marketed for liver machine perfusion like there is for lungs or heart. It could also be used for defattening of steatotic grafts, administration of very high doses of antibacterial or antiviral medication that cannot be given to an entire patient but could be administered to an isolated organ. And also, interestingly, stripping blood group antigens from endothelial cells may permit transplantation across ABO group differences. And this has been shown to be possible in kidneys. Future applications include expanded radius of transit time, increased storage time, and use in research, as an isolated organ doesn't have as many confounding variables as an entire subject would. This is just another busy slide, but I wanted to include it for all the possible avenues that further research and current research is taking. What are the challenges with machine perfusion? Here are some, such as expensive to implement. I know the Transmedic can be up to 80,000, and other devices are also expensive for the heart, but liver machine perfusion disposables can also be pretty pricey, which is a barrier to adoption. Transporting the device can also be an issue, as these devices are pretty bulky and large and heavy. And as was mentioned earlier, that can pose an issue as well. And it also requires trained personnel, which leads me to my next point, scope of practice. So how does this all relate to our profession of perfusion? So like I said, most institutions use a back-to-base strategy, where the recipient hospital puts the liver on machine perfusion, and the perfusionist may be responsible for setting up and priming the circuit, along with teardown and cleaning. Many of the manufacturer instructions provide a perfusionist pack that gives details on how to set up. And implementing new technology requires clinical know-how and training the appropriate staff. Some of the first devices developed were altered bypass and ECMO circuits, and this foundation in familiar technology gives perfusionists foundational knowledge in how these devices work that other clinicians would need to be trained on, preventing an obstacle to adoption. It is important to remember that not every institution has available perfusionists like in cardiac surgery, and so there is still a question of where perfusionists fit into this equation, especially for the liver machine perfusion. So in conclusion, closing the organ gap by implementing machine perfusion has yet to be fully adopted, and no matter the role perfusionists may have, being aware of these devices will inevitably play a role in its adoption, perhaps quickening its use and in turn better serving patients. Thank you.
Go ahead. Another great talk. Well done. You showed that some of the solutions they use contain one of gelfusin. Now, gelfusin, we know after bypass, in about 6 hours, turns to water. So here's a hypothetical question for you. If that event happened in this system, what effects do you reckon it would have on the organ itself? And can you think of something that perhaps you could use instead of gelfusin in this situation?
Yeah, so when I was looking at these studies and reviewing them, I don't know much about the perfusate solutions in of themselves. I didn't dig too deep into it. So I didn't actually know that's what happened after 6 hours. But if it turns to water, I'm sure the tonicity of the solution would be out of whack and would probably damage the organ. So I'm assuming that's probably why it may not be available in the US.
And so if you think, do you know what gelfusin is in terms of, so it's essentially boiled cow's feet. So it's gelatin. So it's a sort of high colloid solution. So it's a colloid. So that's what you're putting it in for. So could you think of something else perhaps that you come across that you would, or could, in theory, use instead of that?
As a perfusate solution?
As a colloid.
As a colloid, okay. I mean, other than the ones I mentioned that are currently used, like custodial or Steen or Wisconsin solution, I guess you could use plasmolite or if you, that's more of a crystalloid, correct? So as a colloid albumin maybe, but that would increase the price, as we all know.
Yeah, that's fine.
Hope that answers your question.
Yeah.
Hey, hi, excellent presentation. Thank you very much. I had a few questions. The third machine you showed, I cannot remember the name. It's the title of your presentation. Yeah, it's open. So is that a problem for transport?
I believe it comes with a dome that's not pictured here. So okay. There's a pack that you sterilely open. You can kind of see the blue, and I believe there's like a dome that makes it easier for transport. So like it is more sterile when it's at the back table or whatnot, waiting around.
And then without going through your slides, how do you monitor the function of your liver while you're doing the machine perfusion?
So I know a lot of the devices have monitors or can have the capability for, like, you can put flow probes or things like that on it. That's one of the benefits of normal thermic machine perfusion, is that viability testing and having more monitoring capabilities can be used.
Yeah, but I mean the function of the liver, like, do you look at specific biomarkers or?
Yeah, there's actually a whole lot, and current research is still looking into that. So like the FMNH and the NADH, the succinate, those could also be looked at. You take labs, usually there's not like an inline monitor or anything.
Okay.
Yeah, I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, it was on your busy slide. That's why I say don't go through your slides. Thank you, though. Thank you, though. Very good presentation.